So I just got out from seeing Obsession a couple days ago, and I'm pretty sure you all already heard about it. Yeah, all the rumors are true. This movie is an absolute horror masterpiece. It is a phenomenal movie, phenomenal horror movie, and phenomenal movie. So I originally heard about this film from I was in theaters seeing another one, and they played the quick trailer with the scene of Bear in the car. And it was a very quick trailer, but when I saw it, I was like, yeah, this movie seems legit. Even though it was coming from Blumhouse, and I know Blumhouse doesn't have such a great reputation. They have a very hit or miss record, usually miss when it comes to their horror movies. Um, usually they're horror movies that are made with a lot of promotional material, not great writing, and they're just there to make, a lot of money, and they usually succeed actually. But in this case, they like blew it out of the water, and it really did show that they can make just such a great movie. And as I was doing research on this film as well, after I saw I liked it so much, I was like, oh shit, Curry Barker was the guy who directed this. And if you didn't know, Curry Barker is a YouTuber and content creator who also made other horror shorts such as The Chair, which is another great horror film. Not horror film. It's a horror short film, which is super good, and you should totally watch it. So after I saw this, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Like they hired someone, they hired the top people for this movie, and they absolutely blew it out of the water. It was phenomenal. But I do have a lot to say about it, so yeah, let's get started. So first, I want to start with what this movie did right. For my personal checkbox of what makes a good horror movie, it hit every note. I know that seems a bit like dramatic, like, oh, it can't be that good. Trust me, it is that good. Like, it hit every checkbox for me, in my personal opinion, what makes a good horror movie. And that is, it had terrifying imagery. It had cringeworthy scenes that just made the viewer feel very uncomfortable. And it had a few, but not overplayed jump scares. Like I said, it ticked every box. And I have little complaints about, the movie here and there, but overall, it's just so good. To start off, the imagery is just so good. It's so terrifying. I'm pretty sure a lot of people already saw the images of her watching him sleep and the makeup done during that scene. It is fucking terrifying, and they did such a good job with the imagery. Like, look at this shit. Just look at it. Like, it is wholly uncanny as hell. But the other aspect of the film that I think it does so good is the dread that it gives the viewer. Like, as you're watching the film, you know something isn't right, and it's very obvious, and the movie only continues to confirm the viewer's inferences about what is going on with the One Wish Willow and, like, the overall, like, what is the possession of Nikki and what is going on. For example, there is this excellently done scene that is actually shown in the trailer for a brief bit, the one that I was talking about in the beginning of the video that I saw, where our main character, Bear, is in his car, and he calls up the customer service hotline for the One Wish Willow. It follows a very comedic scene. It is very funny where he argues back and forth with a clearly disinterested customer service person. The scene relieves so much tension from what has already happened in the movie. But then the customer service employee goes, "Do you want to hear Nikki?" And it's just her screaming, which instantly brings back all the tension that was lost. And it like brings you into a safe, false sense of security due to that comedic atmosphere that was shown during that scene. And then just instantly you're like, oh, like there's nothing comedic about this at all. It is so brilliantly done, and it's just one example. I think this was the best example, but it's only one example of the use of the dread and of like what is happening in the movie and what like what the viewer has to experience while going through the movie. And finally, I want to talk about the jump scares that are in this movie. There were only a few jump scares in this movie, and it's just the absolute perfect amount. Uh, I'm not one of the people that actually hate jump scares. In fact, I actually praise them a lot. Well done jump scares is what simply gets the heart going, and it builds tension, and I think when they are used properly, they can add so much to a horror film. The problem I see with them often is they could be lazy, and like often in horror media, mainly like horror games, where like there will be a couple and then it's just the only sense of horror that is used, giving them the bad reputation that they have, that it's like a lazy form of horror, which I get. but I think overall jump scares are kind of important to a really solid horror film. And like I said, Obsession uses them here perfectly because they aren't overused. There's only a couple of them. And like I'll give you an example. There was a scene in the car um where Bear and his friend Nikki are talking. And there's a lot of scenes of characters talking with very melancholy music talking. A lot of melancholy music playing over the scene. And I was like, okay, this is a very overused trope, like of the two characters talking again, blah blah blah. And then bam, Nikki comes like through the car window and bashes this poor girl's head through the steering wheel. And I actually screamed like incredibly loud. Like I never scream at theaters, and I like I screamed so like not extremely loud, but I was just like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, wow, because like I said, jump scares are used very well when there's very little of them, and you're setting up tension, and that's exactly what the movie did. It had a lot of scenes, which the scenes weren't bad, but like I said, they were a lot of scenes of characters talking with melancholy music, and I was like, okay, this is just going to happen again. But in this case, it added a like outside source of fear into the scene where like I said I had a false sense of security where I was like, okay, nothing scary is happening during these scenes. But then bam, like it absolutely scared the shit out of me. And to only add insult to injury after the scene is after this, after this brutal murder happens, a bear then drives away and opens up a letter that she gave to him about her getting accepted to her dream school. They were going to open it together, and it was actually, no, it was indirectly caused from our selfish protagonist that she died. And he just begins to scream in like, not even pain, just it's a scream of agony and guilt. And it is just so well done. This movie uses comedy, fear, and sympathy all so well, and it just plays with your emotions that all applies to like how good it is as a horror movie. I can also not talk about this movie and not bring up the acting because this is probably on my top five greatest horror performances of all time from an actor. And of course, I'm talking about Inde Neverete. I probably absolutely butchered the living hell out of that, and I'm so sorry. But her as Nikki is just like she did such a phenomenal job. And I know I use words like phenomenal and great and out of the water so much, but I cannot like understate it this time. Like this is like she deserves an Oscar for this performance. She was literally born for this role. And honestly, like I don't think the movie would have been as good if it wasn't for her performance with along with Michael Johnston. But she just like Michael Johnston was great too, but obviously she was just the main antagonist and kind of, partial protagonist of the film along with him. And she just like, and she's also the main source of fear, and just her facial expressions, her acting, her movements, everything she did added the perfect amount of uncanniness, uncomfortableness, and fear into the audience throughout the movie. I cannot, like I said, talk about this movie and not talk about her performance. Like I said, I mean that it is in my top five best horror performances I've seen from an actor. And like I said, the movie would not have been as good if it wasn't for her. The only complaint I have towards the movie is towards the end, there is this corny scene where Ian, Bear's friend, wishes for $1 billion after Bear pleads for him to make a wish that Bear wants with the One Wish Willow. It takes away from the tension, and it really confused me because earlier in the film, it only says that the One Wish Willow worked for some people, and that's why I never really took off as like an item. It was more of a collectible and not like a super popular thing that made wishes come true. And also like Ian's death was really not great. Nikki just shot him in the head, especially for such a great ending towards the film. Uh, his death was really anticlimactic, and that whole scene with him wishing for that was really corny. And I think it could have been, done better because, I was like, oh, wait, what? Like, the wish actually came true, and it just kind of like added confusion to the world that, this movie was building on. Small complaint, doesn't take away from the huge narrative, but it's just something I wanted to say. But overall, Obsession does pretty much everything right in a horror movie. It plays with your emotions in a way many horror movies haven't done to me in a long time. I easily see this movie being an absolute classic, and I can't wait to see what else Curry Breaker has in store for the future in horror.